And we are live. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day for those that celebrate. We are here for another What's Your Dish conversation, which I do every Friday at 10 a.m. with amazing guests in my world that I either know from my world in business or have yet to meet. And What's Your Dish conversations are all about the who, what, why, where, and how of the people that I know in their life, their business, or what I like to call their business of life. And so today I am super excited to talk about all things love of money with my friend Shalini. And we were laughing before. I had a different heart shirt on before I got on. And then I saw what you were wearing today and we decided to be matchy. So like, it's absolutely perfect. I love it. So good morning, Shalini. I'm not going to share anything about you. I'm going to give you the floor to do so and tell everybody what your dish is all about.
Hello, everybody. And yes, Heather, I love this shirt. It's my favorite shirt. And what better shirt with red hearts than to talk about loving your money? So I am a chartered professional accountant. I'm also a licensed financial advisor. And one thing that I realized while working with my clients over the years is that there's a lot of money mindset issues with entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, even more so than that. And so my passion has now become educating on financial literacy and providing coaching to entrepreneurs about how to love your money and what are some simple steps that you can even do to execute that. And so even though, yes, I do the bookkeeping, I do the taxes, my passion has now become kind of coaching entrepreneurs on how to better understand your numbers.
Yeah, it's so important. And I would ask the question like, somebody new to entrepreneurialism versus somebody that has been in it for a long time, do you have the perception that your relationship with money changes over time, or do women especially always have challenges with money?
I never like blanket statements. I have had some women clients that are amazing with money and have really overcome obstacles when it comes to money mindset. And I have had clients that they're years into business and they're still struggling with their money mindset. So I think it's more so than generalizing it as like women are always, I think it just depends on your upbringing. Were you taught to be confident with money, or were you kind of poo-pooed and been like, no, you don't need to do that. Like your husband's going to take care of that. Like, don't you worry your pretty little head about that, right? As well as the success that you may have had in your business will also sometimes dictate if you are a single parent, for example, you have a lot more pressure on your business to succeed because it's literally your bread and butter. Whereas if this is kind of your side hustle and you have other sources of income, you may not take it as seriously because there's that no fire under your butt. So I've kind of seen it all, to put it bluntly. So I don't have a perfect answer to your question of who feels it more. It's very circumstantial.
Mm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So like for somebody like me, I would hear often money doesn't grow on trees, right? So I believe that is an underpinning of money mindset and things like that. Do you have examples of other ones? Like if anybody watching, like they're like,
Oh,
oh, I don't really know what that means.
money is the root of evil. Rich people are snobby and sooty and um, you know, it's selfish to want more. Like you should be happy with what you have. You're being greedy or, just and then there's cultural stigmas around it too of like the man takes care of the money and your role as the female is to kind of cook, clean, and take care of the kids. That will also impact how you perceive your role around money.
Mm.
There's so many, right? It's astounding the stories that some of us have grown up with around money.
Mm. Now, without getting too deep into how you coach people, but I'm curious to know. So, somebody like myself, if I could do a little role playing in the sense of, okay, I come to you and I have this under core belief that money doesn't grow on trees and it's impacting how I grow my business. How would you coach me through shifting that mindset?
So there's small exercises that I can suggest to start, like having a weekly money date and just getting into the exercise. I'm a bit more of an accountability partner. So my coaching clients, they can access me on WhatsApp. And so I'll check in with them like, hey, did you do what you say you were going to do? I actually have a group chat with a few of my coaching clients that all had the same goal of minimizing their wasteful spending and being more mindful. So we kind of keep each other accountable. But I'm also going to caveat, I'm not a proper therapist. And so sometimes when there's real deep-seated issues, I will have to say, you know, maybe you want to go talk to like a psychotherapist to really dig into the core of what's holding you back. That's not what I'm trained in. But what I provide is kind of that outlet. I provide you with some tools, like I said, even something as simple as waking up with an affirmation. And I will share that with my coaching clients of like, you know, you don't have to believe what you think you believe. Let's first identify where your thoughts are coming from, right? And that sometimes is the biggest challenge because you don't necessarily know why you think you're bad with money. A lot of the times it's also just you haven't been given the opportunity to work with your money. If you had a relationship where somebody else was always taking care of it, I have many clients who are like, you know, my parents always did my taxes, and then I got married, and then my partner took care of my taxes. I don't even know the name of our accountant. Okay, well, let's first start slowly getting into the habit of just getting the information. So that's how I coach my clients, is giving them small actionable steps and providing that support system to them. But I will, like I said, fully caveat that sometimes there are deep issues that you need more professional help with.
Yeah, and that's a fair comment. And that's, I think, where the beauty of referrals come in, right? Like I'm sure there's in conversations a tipping point where you're like, okay, I think this is a little bigger than just needing some guidance from that perspective. So I guess I'm going to ask you the question: how are you with money? So this is your occupation, right? So did you grow up? And I know I kind of know the answer to this, but I would love you to share it, or I think I know the answer. But I'm curious on your journey and how you got to do what you're doing to empower women. Did you always feel empowered with money? What was your journey that way?
Great question. And I will first and foremost caveat that just because you're in the financial world doesn't mean that you don't have your own mindset baggage. It's just that you might have the tools to handle it a little bit better. I grew up in a little bit of a, let's say, culturally typical household where my dad predominantly did a lot of the financial decisions. My dad's also a CPA. Both my parents, however, are financial advisors as well. So on the one hand, we didn't really have solid conversations about money. But on the other hand, my parents also encouraged me to be mindful of my money. So my mom wouldn't just buy me whatever I wanted because I asked for it. There was always a, well, you should save your money for like a bigger thing or for something more important. So I did grow up really understanding the concept of not being wasteful. But, and I will admit this out loud, I also saw my parents very much save money, right? They liked to save and invest. And me and my husband both had parents who, you know, would put off the big things until they were older. And my mindset has actually, instead of adopting that from my parents, I'm kind of the stark opposite where I'm like, I don't want to wait till I'm older to enjoy things. So I am more comfortable spending the money, incurring debt even, as long as I have a payment plan. So some people will mimic what their parents do and they adopt that same philosophies. I kind of went the opposite of like, I didn't like the fact that they always were depriving themselves sometimes of that. But then I also have a little bit of a problem now with needing kind of that instant gratification. I am fully admitting I am that I can't go to sleep scrolling on Amazon. Ooh, that's pretty, add to cart type personality. And so that is what I am working on changing myself. So again, yes, I'm a financial advisor, but that doesn't mean that I don't still have my own things to deal with.
Oh, well, that's funny. You already answered a question because what I was going to ask you was what your biggest challenge, and I'll frame it not necessarily with money, but you've been an entrepreneur for 10 years in this realm, maybe longer, you may have had something before. But as an entrepreneur, what do you find your biggest challenge?
As an entrepreneur, for me, my challenge is a little bit unique because I started the business and I only had the one kid. And then since then, I've had two subsequent children. So for me, the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur has been balancing the needs of being a mother and running a business. I am the primary parent. My partner has a full-time job. Unfortunately, his commute is quite far, so I don't necessarily have him as a daily participant in the children's lives. My parents are huge supporters of that, but my personal challenge has just been growing the business while taking care of a newborn and then dealing with the pandemic and all that stuff. So my growth has not been necessarily as straightforward as perhaps if I was done with the kids, a little bit older, could focus a little bit more on the business. So that's been my challenge. And then obviously that then comes with an income challenge where if I can't grow and take on as many clients because I have other responsibilities, okay, how do I balance whatever income I am bringing in? And I think it's really important for anybody listening that is in that stage of your business. We have this desire to grow our business really, 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 really fast. But if you have little people in your life, just remember they're only going to be little for so long. And so I did fortunately have the support system to fully embrace motherhood and have the business grow slowly to what I could handle.
I love that. That is amazing. And I think that speaks a lot to the environment that you're in that support to have a family and be the main person for your kids and have a business that's growing, but you have the support to not have it grow exponentially as you may want. Because I think this is, well, I'll speak for myself. There's a bit of a struggle sometimes with where you want to spend your time. And it's not because you don't love your children and it's not because you don't love your business, but there's only so many hours in a day. And where do you find, like you say, that balance to support both in the way that makes you feel good at the end of the day? That you've not necessarily ticked off all the boxes. I don't mean it that way, but meaning that your bucket is full based on what you've done in a day. Would that make sense? Would that resonate with you?
Yeah. And so for me, that choice ended up being hiring people. So I now have a team that supports me. And that obviously is an expense that I have to build into the business model, right? But I didn't have the capacity to be doing all the work and dealing with, now 3 children. So for me, that was then deciding to build a team. You have to kind of ask yourself also, what are you building the business? Some people just want to own a job. They don't want to work for somebody else, but they don't want to build a business, right? And so they only want to do what they themselves are capable of doing. Whereas if you're building a business, that inherently comes with having a team, having a support system, because you can't build a business by yourself.
Wow, you've just really put the gauntlet down on that one. I've literally never heard a business of a job. Like that is so, like, it literally, you hit me upside the head of that. Really, in the sense of, because you're right. So somebody like myself that was in corporate, and I use this analogy quite a bit, right? I was a product manager, so I owned the product, but I had nothing to do with the marketing. I didn't do the accounting. I had to do the submissions and the idea generation and whatnot. But other buckets got filled by other people that were being, and so now as an entrepreneur, I'll admit, like, I've always struggled with giving my social media away or something like that, because I think in my head I have this authenticity gap where they're not going to represent me in the best way from a social media perspective. I, again, admittedly, have yet to release from an accounting perspective, but just in this conversation, I'm like, wouldn't it be lovely to just release all of that, have a foundation and understand it, but then release it and let somebody else take care of it?
But I'll challenge you. It doesn't have to be social media. It doesn't have to be like you got to understand what your kind of business deliverables are, right? So I actually had that exact same issue with releasing my social media. I did hire somebody for a period of time, but one, I found myself having to review every single thing that they were producing because I do share technical advice. And so if they were going to produce like a tip Tuesday, I had to make sure the tip was factually accurate. And then the voice and all that. So I actually took back my social media and I decided to actually then out to hire staff so that they can do the client deliverables for me and I can then review it. So I'm saving the time of, I'm not doing the data entry. I'm not doing a lot of that time consuming work. I then just step in and do the review of like, okay, does it make sense? Right. So you can outsource different things in your business. It doesn't have to be social media because you're right. If it doesn't sound like you and then a client comes in front of you and you're like, there's a disconnect, they're not going to want to work with you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a really good point. So then so a client comes to you and says, okay, so out of the mindset, let's get into the doing of, because you mentioned having staff to do the input and things like that. Like, can you describe to me your ideal client, like that comes to you and says, help me, Shalini?
So I work specifically with owner managed businesses. That means you have a business, but you are still very much the one running the business, doing the work. And so because I'm a CPA and a financial advisor, I bridge that gap between business and personal. So my ideal client is a owner managed individual who's really struggling with, I want to grow my business. I don't know how much to pay myself. I don't know how to price myself. I don't know how to do all these things. And I still have a personal life. So how do I kind of work these two things together? And that is my ideal client because they then want the financial literacy education. So all the coaching is still done by me, but then if they want bookkeeping or tax filing, I have a team to support me in those activities.
Ah, okay. I think I missed that. So I'm glad I asked you that question, because I guess, again, from somebody that's not a CPA and not doing that type of stuff, I guess I've pigeonholed that in my mind of, it's always just the receiving of receipts, putting it all together, and then doing the taxes. And so then that doesn't necessarily help somebody that wants to grow the business and wants to have somebody holding their hand essentially with what those steps would be.
Well, I'm going to say it depends on what you're looking for from the relationship with those providers. There are a lot of bookkeeping and tax filing tends to be transactional. You give me your shoebox full of receipts, I process it, then do your taxes. Here's how much you owe. Okay, cool. But are you understanding what happened in your business? Yes, they gave you a nice report. You figured out how much taxes you owe, but that's not the goal of running a business, right? Just paying your taxes is not the goal. It's, do you understand what your numbers are telling you? And that's the added service that I provide is I'll walk you through your numbers. And if you don't understand it, I then have a coaching program where I can then teach you how to do all these things so that when your bookkeeper is sending you those reports for you to review, you understand what they're telling you too.
Yeah. So smart. So, oh, I had a question in there and I totally just went, oh my goodness, that's so okay. Anyways, we'll just move on. I was something you said, and I really wanted to tip on that. And I'm usually pretty good at this, but today it just went whoop, going away. So in that sense, you've helped me understand the business. Now, again, from an offering perspective, you've given me the information, but again, this is not about me, it's about you. So I'd love you to share ways that people can work with you, how they can get to know you. Oh, I remember what my question was, but we'll go back to it after. How somebody could work with you and what you offer for people to build the know, like, and trust with you. Because I think, as you mentioned before, right, there's lots of you out there, meaning CPAs, accountants, things like that. How does one come to you, and do you help someone decide that you're the best person to work with?
Excellent question. So I've kind of broken my business into two paths. some people come, they just want the bookkeeping, they just want the tax filing. And so I do have pricing and packages available for just that kind of yearly transactional type of stuff. But then I have a series of consultations that I also offer, something as simple as a business clarity call where it's just 30 minutes. I have some questions. I just need these specific questions answered. I have that. And that's a quick way for us to kind of figure out, do we want to work together? I have a more in-depth 2-hour consultation for brand new entrepreneurs. It's called the Accounting Fundamentals. This is all the stuff you're just magically supposed to know when you start a business, because no accountant is educating their clients on, CRA deadlines. What is a write-off? What are the expense categories? So I have a consultation for something like that. And then I have more detailed consultations like a tax and wealth, where we do a deep dive into your numbers. And that one is unique to me because I'm a CPA and licensed financial advisor. I'm dual certified. Most accountants are just one or the other, right? And then they'll refer you to somebody to do the other piece, but they're not looking at it holistically as one component. And it's the tax and wealth that also now includes coaching as part of that consultation.
Ah, okay. I don't think I realized that you have those two accreditations to be able to help somebody with that. I don't believe I put that connection in. So my question earlier was, and this is again for anybody listening that may be looking for somebody to come in and speak to their teams or things like that, because you work with business owners as well. So you do public speaking engagements and things like that. So if somebody is looking for a guest speaker, how would you be able to help them?
Yeah, so I do public speaking on a variety of topics. Money mindset is one of my bigger ones. That's kind of for the larger audience. So I'm actually speaking at 2 upcoming events, one for International Women's Day and another Amplify Your Voice Finance Edition in May. But let's say you have a smaller team and they're looking for a bit more of a technical, what should I be doing as an entrepreneur? So I can actually take my 2-hour accounting fundamentals and break that down into a smaller workshop, which is a bit more technically geared.
Okay, awesome. And how do you advertise that then?
Social media, word of mouth. Because I do manage my own social media, I'm not very good at like ads or anything like that. But it does just generally come from word of mouth. People say, I'm looking for somebody, and somebody who knows me or has seen me speak will then refer me. And that's typically how I get those opportunities.
Nice. I love that. Well, and so you didn't say what I thought your answer might be. So I'm going to ask you the question because I think what I'm finding right now as an event planner, I'm just very curious where people are at from events, from an attending events perspective, but also where you're networking. Because for some people, as an entrepreneur, the networking space is a great place to find clients, find referrals, find business partners, things like that. So because we don't live in the same area, we do in Ontario, but not necessarily in the same town. I'm curious out your way, or where maybe you prefer to network online. Where do you spend your time when it comes to networking, or do you do it at all? I'm like, you could be on the other side of it and not do it at all.
I used to do a lot of networking pre-baby number 3, let's say. And so in 2022, I did have my 3rd child, a son. And then networking, unfortunately, in-person networking fell through the wayside, but I still try to attend in-person networking events wherever possible, because I'm a big believer that there is no virtual event will ever mimic the energy and the connections you make with an in-person event.
Preach.
100%. And so part of my goal for 2025 is actually to do more in-person networking. I've done the onlines. I met at FemCity. I'm a member of FemCity. And so I actually tried to launch the Mississauga chapter itself, but that didn't work out. But yeah, I online, I spend a lot of time in Facebook groups as well, just trying to answer other people's questions. A lot of the time people will post their accounting and tax questions. And so I try to kind of give back in the Facebook groups and show myself as a subject matter expert by answering people's questions in Facebook groups. But other than that, it has been, I'm admitting it's been a little bit sparser, the in-person networking and even online networking, but that's just the reality of having a newborn.
Yeah, yeah, I totally. And I think we're at different places in our lives as far as where like the ages of our kids. So yeah, that's interesting. It would make more sense logistically for you to be online and doing things like that from a networking perspective. And it's interesting that you had mentioned FemCity and the Mississauga chapter. I think a lot of that things were a timing thing and having the pandemic and all that. I don't actually recall when you said. So what chapter are you a part of now then?
I mean, unofficially, I'm part of I think the Toronto chapter or the no, the Canada Online chapter I'm part of. I tend to only go to the Founder Circle networking events, just based purely on timing of those events, because I am one of the Founder Circle members. But yeah, like I just find that now people are more hesitant to do in person anything. Like even, I have clients that won't come visit me in my office. I mean, they just want to hop on a Zoom and go over everything that way. So I get it because you don't have to travel and commute time is, crazy where I live in the GTA, but yeah, mostly online these days.
Yeah, actually, if you've brought it up because I'm not, so we're both members of FemCity for anybody watching. So, for the purpose of education around what FemCity is about, could you share a little bit about why you've chosen the founder circle, what that means to you as a business owner, how it benefits you, and things like that?
Right. So, the reason I opted to become a Founders Circle member, and it used to be called something different when I first joined, but it is more global. So I meet with people in North America in totality. And because what I do on the coaching side is applicable to anyone, anywhere, I thought for that particular venture, it would make more sense. So I have a group coaching program called 𝒍𝒊𝒏𝒈, and that is a 1-year coaching program for entrepreneurs on financial literacy and what you should be doing with your numbers. To promote that and to kind of get feedback on that. It's a global program. I don't have to be Canadian anything to be participating in that. So it just made more sense for me to be on a more global level than just focusing on a smaller chapter. And so that was why I opted for that particular level of membership.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that. Thank you for bringing up because this was another thing I was going to ask was about the 𝒍𝒐𝒈 program because I was curious what that was. And so you mentioned it's a year-long program. So for somebody so take me through that journey of how somebody would get to that, like meaning like from the consultation and then you have other offerings, like what would make somebody want to invest a full year in that program?
Honestly, it comes down to finances, right? So 𝒍𝒐𝒈 is $2,500 for a 1-year membership. And for a lot of people, that's what is affordable to them on a monthly basis. Whereas one-on-one CFO services with a lot of other firms tends to start at like a couple $100 per session, right? And so if you feel that you need that education and that support, but obviously a one-on-one with another fractional CFO is just not in your budget, this to me was that affordable gap. There was no group CFO coaching. What I found, even when I took, I've had coaching myself, they talk to you a lot about the high level things. And then when it comes to the numbers, they're like, go talk to your accountant. And the accountant was just doing your taxes. So who's actually helping you understand what your numbers are telling you and giving you that financial literacy? So there is no one really filling that gap. And so that's why I created this program. And it's, $2,500 for a 1-year program. I promise you, you're not going to find a 1-year program for $2,500 anywhere.
Yes,
it does not exist. Usually programs are like 6 weeks for $2,500. But there's a need for it. And so why is it a 1-year program? It's going to take time for you to even implement anything that we're talking about. So if we met every single week and I just started spewing at you information, your business may not have even had a chance to experience that for us to then end the relationship. So 1 year allows you to really implement the changes, the mindset, and learn at a more like at a slower pace so you can really implement it in your business. We meet once a month. You have 4 weeks to action something.
And this, when you were talking about the WhatsApp group and things like that, is that where you, so 1 month or once a month they meet with you? Are they the people that are in that WhatsApp group and get
We have
that
a
support?
WhatsApp group for the biz buddies as well. And again, in that WhatsApp group, if you have a problem that comes up, you can, ask. I'll send reminders of like, hey, it's the end of the month, do your bookkeeping, just kind of coaching you there. And I'll send affirmations as well. I don't bombard. I try to be respectful that people don't want a million messages at a time. But yeah, so that is one way. And then if you're a tax and wealth client, you also get a WhatsApp support, but that then is a one-on-one support because that's one-on-one coaching.
Nice. I love that. So my next question is, if one piece of advice for someone that hasn't fallen in love with their numbers.
Take the time to reflect on what you hate about your numbers or what scares you about looking at your numbers. I had a client who every time they got a letter and it was so CRA tends to send you letters and they're always in those like brown envelopes, right? She would literally just throw it in the corner. Like she had such a hesitation about even opening those envelopes. So if you don't love your numbers, the first step is to maybe just sit and reflect. What is it you feel about your numbers? Does it bring you anxiety? Does it bring you fear? Does it bring you, if you're even watching this and you've been getting that stomach pain of like, oh, I don't do, understand where you're starting from, because then you can take steps to change and maybe do a little bit of reflection of what would you love to have your relationship with money even look like.
I love that. That's amazing. So is that somebody that you would, if they hadn't done that, is that part of what you would coach them on?
Yeah, so we definitely, so for Biz Buddy, for example, every session we start off with doing money mindset work first, and then we get into the learning. And then even with the one-on-one coaching, the first step is I ask them like, so how do you feel about these things? And they will then often kind of tell me, and like, let's say I have one client, for example, there's been a task that she keeps avoiding. And so I'll just check in, like, how are things going? And she's just like, I have such a, block about doing this activity that you told me to do. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to, should we book a Zoom call where you can kind of do it and I'm there with you? Or like, how can I support you? And that's where I say, like, you have to also understand where your limits are coming from, because then sometimes if it's really pressing, maybe we need to do deeper work with other professionals.
Right. Yeah. Huh. So interesting. I can't help but look at the saying over your right shoulder.
Yes.
So is that meant to inspire your clients when you're on the call with them?
Yes. Well, this entire back wall, I don't know if you can read, I've got signs there. During the pandemic, when I had to create a home office, I was like, okay, everyone's going to be looking at me and they're going to be looking behind me. And so everything that is on these signs is all meant to just kind of inspire you to be the best version of yourself. Your money may not be where you need it to be monetarily or dollar value wise, but that doesn't mean that the journey can't still be in your control.
Oh, I love that. And the fireplace. Yeah, everything looks at, I can't see the full things, but a rest is like jumping out at me. It's so funny.
Well, my home office is above my garage and it gets ridiculously cold in here. So the fireplace was a must when we converted this room.
Oh, that's very, very smart. I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so for the sake of time, we're going to tap into the portion where I invite my guests to share their point of view. And I use these tools that I use in my business. They're called points of view. And they are meant for, this is my favorite one, which is called punctum. And it can be used in a variety of ways, from conversation starters to programs and processes where clients can really transform their thinking around a subject or a theme or things like that. So for the purpose of this, it's kind of from a conversation starter perspective. So Shalini, I invite you to choose. Would you like me to choose a word or a question for you to share your perspective on?
Let's go with question.
Okay. And I always like to frame this as like as I said, these are typically tools used as far as part of a process. So these questions sometimes come out from left field and you're like, well, that doesn't, but everybody can answer what the question might be. Oh, well, this one's interesting. And in these, when I ask you this, Shalini, it doesn't necessarily need to be with business or what we everything we talked about, because again, you're balancing work and family and whatnot. So I think this is a very loaded question, but we're gonna ask it anyways. What do I expect of myself?
I mean, I think the part of that question that I'm actually working on is perfection, right? I think we, especially women, tend to want to be perfect in every single aspect of their life. And I was always raised to be the top, like academics was always, you must get, really good grades. You've got to be A. If I got like 95%, my mom would be like, where's the other 5% type thing, right? So very high achiever expectations growing up that I am working on in my personal life now to be like, it's okay to make a mistake. And that also comes from having some, in the corporate world where you can do the best job and like meet all the deadlines and they're like, good job, you did exactly what we want. Like there's no achievement there. It's just like, what do you want? Like a cookie? And so just kind of being grateful and mindful that I'm not going to be perfect and I don't need other people's validation to feel good about myself.
Ooh, I just got all the shivers on that one. I actually read, and it pertains in this way too, but it's have you ever heard of soul pleaser or people pleaser to soul pleaser?
I've heard the concept of people pleaser, but no, I don't really know much about that specific context.
Yeah, so last year I decided to, after resisting it for an awfully long time, was audiobooks. Like I like to feel the book, but anyways, shifted to audiobook. And that was the first one that I read. And it was just so interesting because at the foundation, it is people pleasing is perfectionism, right? We always put other people first and do all of the things. And I don't know necessarily in your case whether this would be the thing that changes everything, but I always think of perfectionism, because I am guilty of it as well, in the how do we release this need? Because again, if we take it back to money and things like that, perfectionism in general, or the feeling, it stops us from moving forward because we get stuck in this whole thing of it's not perfect, so we can't release it, or we can't. I'm ashamed of being in business for this long and not knowing what my money looks like, and so I'm not going to find somebody to support me in my business because I'm not perfect, and then that'll be not a good thing. Would that make sense to you?
It's very, very much resonates where I am in my own life and what I find with my clients as well, of like, my numbers aren't perfect. Okay, numbers are never going to be perfect. You're just in control of the journey. And so, yeah. What was the name of that book? I'm going to actually download. I too just recently claved to audiobooks because I co-sleep with my children. And so sometimes the only way I get any self-time is I actually bought these little headband with speakers in it. Like they're called a cozy or something. And I'll listen to an audiobook while I'm patting his butt to make him go to sleep. And that's the only me time I get. So what was the name of that book? From People Pleaser to Soul Pleaser?
Yes. Yeah, it's a nice yellow book and it has pink flowers on it, and it's a woman from Australia that wrote it, and she's on socials and whatnot. But it's really fun to listen to her voice because she's the one that narrates her book. So I find with audiobooks, and again, we're getting off topic, but with audiobooks, like I have to be able to listen to the person. So I'm listening, like many, to the Let Them theory right now from Mel Robbins, right? I can take her, but legit, there's some books that I've wanted to listen to, but I listen to the preview and I can't, like the voice just doesn't resonate, and which is a shame. Which is then if I really think I need it, I guess I'll go get the book. But audiobooks have been a game changer because for me, like I'm a walker, right? So listening to it and getting the education similar to you. You're fitting it in when you can, which is better than not fitting it in at all, I would say, right? And God
100%.
bless you for having 3 babies and you're in bed with them and all that stuff.
It is a labor of love, to say the least.
Yes. It's funny. I wrote little Valentines for my kids this morning because they're older. I have 17 and 14. But I like it was just about the fact that, and so one of my older son, I guess I probably shouldn't be talking about his business, but anyways, he has a friend that's a girl now. And so things change, right? Like mom is the person forever. And so I had written a little note about like you're in my heart forever, even though it's getting to the point where I need to release you. But yeah, it's crazy.
You'll always be his first love.
Yes. I gave him a hug this morning and that's kind of what I said. I'm like, I know I'm not your Valentine anymore, but that's okay.
Well, you should still be his Valentine. He'll have multiple Valentines.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's really, and again, you're very early in this process, but very interesting and fun to watch your little human become their own person and making their own decisions on how to show love to somebody else. Like I think that's so amazing. And you've given me a lot to think about today, starting how we started about where I look at money and what behaviors and things that may happen in our house and how that's transmuting to my children and how they're going to appreciate or not appreciate or their relationship with money as they move forward. So that could be a whole other topic.
And one thing I encourage you to do, and everyone listening, include your children in on the conversations. We try to shelter our children from any money problems we may be having because we want them to have this idea of, no, everything is perfect. A, that's setting them out for failure because they need to realize that life is not always going to be perfect. But B, if they buy into whatever the decision is, you may not feel as heavy with that decision either, right? So I'll give you an example. We actually recently put down one of our dogs. And we were feeling the void in our family. And so new puppies are A, not cheap, but B, it's a commitment. And so I actually sat down with the kids. I'm like, you guys want puppies. It costs this much for the type of breed that we want and blah, blah, blah. That means that we can't do a vacation. We can't do this. We have to pick, like, you know, if you want a big birthday party, like birthday parties for kids are like ridiculously expensive at places. I'm like, are you willing to sacrifice that so that we use that money on this? And they made the decision together. And so now there's no arguments later of like, but I want, like, no, we decided. And so it's very easy to bring your kids in on those decisions of like, if we go out to eat today, that means there's no money. Like we can either spend $100 on takeout or we can put this towards a vacation fund. Simple decisions that we have to make. Get their buy-in on those conversations too.
I love that. Thank you for that tip. That's fantastic. I think could go for anybody because there's a lot in that you just shared. I love that. So the other question I have for you related to, because my business is dish events and this is a what's your dish conversation. But so from a food perspective, I'm very curious of what your favorite dish is, whether it's something that you make, a restaurant that you go to.
My new favorite obsession is actually doing homemade pizzas. I recently bought off Amazon a Paisano. It's like a little pizza oven, circular pizza oven. And so I've really been having fun making different pizzas at home. And then each kid gets to pick their own toppings and put it in. And so it's been a little bit of a fun family activity because I actually buy the dough and like we're rolling it and everything. And so you get to have pizza night, but then it's also marginally cheaper than what pizza costs these days. And then they can have like their pizza, like pepperoni only. And I'll be like, I'm going to put veggies on mine. So that has been my recent little obsession.
Oh, I love that. And then like you say, the investment was for the Paisano, did you call it?
Paisano is what it's called. Yeah.
I love that. So you've made the investment in that, but it comes back in spades. Although to your point about the cost, quite frankly, so I'm a pizza maker in our house as well. We do it in the oven, but I've even noticed crazy the increase in the price of dough. So I don't make my own dough, which sometimes goes in my head. I'm like, should I just be making the dough? Because again, from a cost savings perspective, but it saves me time on the other side. So it's that what's the best way to do it?
Yeah.
But I love that the investment in the tool brings so many beautiful things, like you said, more family time, everybody gets what they want. So they're individual pizzas then.
Yeah, so I mean, you can put a frozen pizza in there, but I
Right.
do it small, like maybe a 6-inch type pizza type. And so I get the Pillsbury dough. I'm not a baker. I'm not gonna try to make my own dough, but I do get the Pillsbury, and that requires me to like,
Oh,
knead it a
neat.
little bit and with the pin. And so the kids actually then have fun because I'll make them their little circle and say, okay, put the sauce, put the cheese, put whatever toppings you want. And then the reason I like the Paisano versus the oven, because it's a smaller tool, the elements kind of are closer. So you get a really nice, like crispy pizza, which I prefer.
Huh. You have to look into that for camping because I think we camp only once a year, but like we always end up having sometimes the same things. And so I think that would be really neat because I'm assuming it's electric.
It's
No?
electric. Yeah, you just plug it in.
Yeah.
I
Huh.
don't know if I would do it for camping because you can only do like one person's meal at a time. But
Fair enough. Yeah.
one of
But
the
I
things
guess,
that I invested in, just a totally side topic, but is an Instant Pot. So we have a trailer that we go to, a travel trailer, and yes, it has a kitchen, but I don't want to be spending hours cooking in a kitchen. So we ended up getting an Instant Pot for our trailer seasons.
oh, I love that. So do you like ribs?
I like when other people make me ribs. I have never been able to make good ribs by myself.
So thank you for bringing this up in your Instant Pot because I made ribs in my Instant Pot this week. I have a recipe for it, which I will send to you. They are crazy easy and so delicious. Like you still have to put the whatever like what's the word I'm looking for?
Marinade?
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Like the dry marinade on it and whatnot, but they go in and like 25 minutes you have, and then you can broil them if you want with barbecue and sauce and stuff. But my husband will make ribs on the barbecue in the summer, but from a winter perspective, and to your point, quick and easy, you don't have to do it. Honestly, it's the best one I found. So I'm willing to share it with you. I think it's fantastic. If you want to try it out.
Thank you. I will
Yeah.
definitely I don't do a lot of ribs, but my son absolutely loves them. My 10-year-old is starting to turn into a foodie, which is getting quite expensive. So I
Yeah.
will definitely take you up on that recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, unfortunately, we got to shut this down because I could talk to you forever and all the things. But thank you for being my guest today. What I would love, so we are live on LinkedIn right now, but I don't know if that's your place where you would want people to follow you, a website that you have. Where is the best place for somebody to find you and find those ways to connect with you and get to know you and things like that?
So my website is super easy, www.oneshalini.com, the number one Shalini.com. You'll find out about my speaking opportunities, my consultations are there, and the link to book my appointment with me is right there as well. Just oneshalini.com/appointment. Let's book a right fit call, and I can tell you a little bit more about myself and my information, or send me a private message.
I love that. And you're also on Instagram as well. Like, are you not?
Yes, so same handle, one Shalini DK.
I love it. Well, is there any last words or advice or anything that you would like to dish about today?
Yes. So for anybody watching this that's kind of been like, you know what, I need to do that, I encourage you right now, pick up your phone and put in a money date in your calendar. If you're in a relationship, invite your partner to that money date where you just pour yourselves like maybe a Sunday morning mimosa and start talking about your numbers together.
I love that. Yeah. What a great way to spend Valentine's Day. I love it. Thank you so very much for your time and your wisdom and sharing it with the people that in my world. If you are watching this and would like to be a guest, I would love to interview you. You can email me at heather@dishevents.ca is the best way to find me so that I can then send you the information about how to be a guest, because I think this is an awesome way to share about the amazing people in my world like I did today. And so thank you so very much for being with me today. And I hope to see you in person soon. That was kind of one of the reasons why I was asking about the networking. I'm not going to lie. I was like, where can I get in? I'm not a hugger, but I like the sound of hugging, I always say, right? When people come together, it's magic.
I need to get more in touch with in-person networking again. It's coming into tax season, so it probably won't be in the next 2 months, but in the summertime, I will look out for Fem City events that you'll be coming to, and I will make a point to attend those.
Whoop, whoop. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you to you for joining me today and anybody watching the live or the replay. Hope you have an awesome Valentine's Day and an awesome rest of your Friday and weekend. Bye for now.